How long did you teach at Benton?
Before I answer the question, I just want you all to know that they put the best looking one on the right end. You believe that? Maybe. Okay. I taught at Ben for 27 years. I started in 1971 and I retired in 1999.
I taught at Benton Community for 36 years, and I started in 1970 when I was very, very young, and I retired in 2006.
I taught at Benton Community for 16 years, grades 3rd, 5th, and 6th. Is that a question later as far as what grades? So 16 years.
I was at Benton 35 years, on and off, maybe 36. I'm not sure if they count half years or not. I retired and we're not supposed to say the grade?
Oh, you can.
Well, it was 4th grade. And I retired in 2007. Thanks for having us, too.
She's got a couple other questions on her.
How long have you been retired?
16 years. 17 years, actually. Yeah, long time.
2006, so I'll let you do the math.
I was just going to say, we're making them do the math now to figure out how long they've been retired. They got to subtract to find the difference. 10.
Okay, I've been retired from the classroom for 7 years. So after I taught 16 years here at Benton, I taught another 16 years down in Iowa City School District. So I retired in the classroom 7 years ago, but I still go back and substitute at my building in Iowa City, and then I supervise student teachers. Do you know what student teachers are? Do you get them out here? For Cornell College in Mount Vernon. So it's been formally 7 years since the classroom.
This is my 9th year of being retired.
Why did you retire?
Because with the retirement system that the state of Iowa has, when you receive or when you get 88 years combination of age and years teaching, you can retire with 65% of your salary, and I wasn't going to work for 35% of my salary. No, I had a lot of other things I wanted to do as well.
I retired because it was time. It was just time to. And I had been at it a long time. I had a student teacher in my classroom in the fall, and she was so young and energetic, and it was like, it's time.
Oh, let's see. About the time that I decided to retire, one of our daughters had a 1-year-old and then twins that were just born. So I felt like maybe I was needed a little bit more with some family obligations rather than staying in the classroom. And I too did meet that rule of 88, actually 89, 90 or something like that. So it was time to retire.
I also had family issues with my mom's health, and it was just also time for me to retire when I knew I couldn't hear my students very well. No, it was a wonderful career, but it was time to retire.
Next. If you taught in Keystone, which room was yours?
I never taught in Keystone.
When I first started teaching in Keystone, I was in the classroom, the first classroom on the other side there, so that would be, yes. Yes, And then before that, there was an old building. I don't know if you have seen pictures, but there was an old building, and I was in that at first. And then I moved down to where Mrs. Bridgewater, I believe, is now. Is that correct? Yes. I also taught in the Blairstown building when I first came to Benton. And I was there for about 6 years before I came to Keystone.
Yeah, I think I've been in a lot of the classrooms here. Right across from you, Mrs. Logan, at one point in time, and not too far from Mrs. Eckenrod. And then when I taught third grade, it was down at the more toward the far end of the building, across from the office, one across from the office. And then, of course, you guys don't remember that, but the old building, it's very old, wasn't it? Yeah, with several classrooms there. And a half a year in Blairstown. I can't forget about that, half a year in Blairstown.
I also taught the first years in that old building that doesn't exist anymore, and in 2 rooms there. Then I taught first grade on the first room here in the hall on the right when you go down the hall. I taught also in the next room and the one on the other side of the office. So I've been in 3 rooms down there.
That's our room.
Yeah. Love the building.
Did you have any problem with students?
No, I didn't.
I'm just going to tell you one story. It was about a boy we were on the playground for recess, and it was very, very cold. And someone dared him to put his tongue on a metal pole. You know, right? And so that was a problem, more for him than for me. But we had to send somebody in as quickly as we could and get some warm water. And I don't know that it really helped a whole lot. But you would know, wouldn't you, not to do that? Yes. So that's probably one of the scariest things that happened. But we don't talk about problem children because we didn't have that many here.
No. Keystone kids were always really, really good. We didn't have very many problems. You know, a little talking now and then, maybe out of turn, but don't you do that now? Yeah. Okay.
I don't have a story either. The kids here were really pretty good kids. And that was because your parents were good parents. That made a lot of the difference. So it was pretty easy to do.
What grade or subjects did you teach?
I taught mostly juniors and seniors. Every once in a while I taught a sophomore class. I taught a 7th grade class one time. I told the principal I didn't like to teach 7th graders because I figured about that time somebody kidnapped them out of 6th grade and they took them to outer space and they brought a zombie in with them and they were just weird. 7th graders are weird. Yeah, they are. Mostly I taught juniors and seniors, and I taught social studies, I taught government, economics, global affairs, American issues, investments, real estate, and insurance, and all kinds of other little things. And driver's ed. I taught driver's ed for almost 50 years. So I just stopped a couple of years ago.
When I was at Blairstown, I taught 5th and 6th grade and 2nd grade. And then I switched for a few years and did Title I reading, which was helping students that have a little more difficulty in reading. Did that for many years, and then I moved into 4th grade, and I taught with Mrs. Eckenrod, and who we worked very well together, and I appreciated having her as my teaching partner for all of those years I taught 4th grade.
And I taught 3rd grade, 5th grade, and 6th grade. And I believe I had Mr. Jungie in my 5th grade class.
I had him in 4th grade. Your principal, we were talking about. I taught 1st grade, remedial reading, remedial math, for a short time in Blairstown, and I taught fourth grade the rest of my career. And I also had Mrs. Townsley as a partner and Mrs. Logan as a partner, so teaching partner. So
What was your favorite subject to teach?
My favorite subject was economics. Does anybody know what economics is? No. You may sometimes hear about the economy, how it's doing, people are working, how much money they make, how the inflation rate's going, stuff like that. That's economics.
That is a hard question. Maybe the subject that I didn't like to teach was science, but I could never talk Mrs. Eckenrod into switching around with me. So maybe social studies and maybe reading and writing, those kinds of things. But when you're in elementary school, you teach them all. So, but the fun thing about science is we had some good units to teach.
Yeah, we did teach almost every subject, didn't we? But I have to say, I love teaching science and social studies. I think those were probably one of my favorites.
I like social studies as well. We did some fun things back in those days. We had more time to do that. We raised chickens. We hatched chickens one year. We had butterflies that we launched one year after they were born. And, you know, things like that. So it was I think that was my favorite.
Do you have any funny stories you remember from teaching?
I've had this question for about 5 days now, and I've been really trying to think of some funny stories, and the only funny story I can think of is
I think I told you mine about the boy with the tongue on the frozen pole. I'm sure there are lots of them, and there are times when I wish I had written down some things. So teachers, because every once in a while a memory will come to me of something that happened to someone else, and I think, oh yeah, I remember when I was teaching, and some things like that. But I can't tell you anything exactly like I told you before.
Yeah, this was a hard one too. It's been so long since I taught here at Keystone. But I do remember one day I had 2 pairs of shoes at home. One was black, and they were the same type of shoe. And one was black and one was dark brown. And I came to school and did not realize that I had one black shoe and one dark brown shoe. And some of the students said, I think I was Mrs. Morgan at that time, your shoes are different. I looked down, and sure enough, shoes were different. They looked pretty much the same in the morning when I got up, but yeah, that's about the only thing I could think of.
I had the trouble with this one also. I can remember lots of funny stories, but I can't tell any of them. I can't tell you any of them. Well, they'd take too long.
Did your own children go to Benton?
I'm sorry, I missed your question. Did our children go to Benton? Yes, we have 3 children, and they all went to Benton. Our sons, we had twin sons, and they started, I think they were in 3rd grade, and they went all the way through, and our daughter started here in kindergarten. So, yes.
I have 2 daughters who both graduated from Benton, and my daughter, Alicia, lives with her family in Van Horn, so I have 2 grandsons that go to school here. Will is in 1st grade, Will Roush, and Mason is in preschool.
Yeah, we had, both of our daughters went to Benton, kindergarten, all the way through 12th grade, so yes.
We also had 3 children, and they all went all the way through school at Benton Community.
How many students did you usually have in your class?
That's a hard question to answer. It would vary. I think the least students I ever had, once in a while I'd have a class and I only had 4 or 5 students in it. Those were classes that were really hard and the students didn't want to take them. But then the what we call survey classes, which are the classes that they have to take, usually we would have somewhere between 20 to 28. You know, it would vary depending upon lots of different things.
I think the largest class I ever had was 28, and the smallest was 13. And those were both 4th grade classrooms, I believe.
And I think maybe my smallest was maybe 18, but I do remember, normally there are 2 sections of every grade at Keystone, right? Well, there was one year where we had 31 students, and it wasn't enough to split them into 2 classrooms. So I started the year with 31 students. Do you remember Mr. Sanderson? Okay. His daughter Nikki was in that class, I believe. So we started with 31. That was a big class.
I think I had that same group in 4th grade, and they were 32 that year, but one must have left. The smallest classes I had were 16, and I'm spotting more faces of children whose parents I had in school. Yeah, there's quite a few out here. I see them now.
What do you think of when you think of Benton community?
I think of family. I think of good times. I think of safety, security. I think of people who love you and people who are willing to help you do whatever it is that you'd like to do.
I can't add anything more to that. I think Ron said it spot on.
And you know what's really nice about Benton community? I think everybody knows each other here because the towns are small, even though some of you are from Blairstown, is that right? Some from Keystone, some from Van Horn. And a lot of your parents went to school here, and I think it's a very close community.
I agree with everything that the others said. Benton community is very unique because it is like a big family, and we've always used that term, actually, the Benton family. So it was a great place to teach. The teachers were close. We had a great time here, and it was a great place to raise our children. And as someone said, I guess Ron said, it was a very safe place to raise your family.
Do you have a proud moment from teaching at Benton?
Yeah, I have a lot of proud moments. Mostly it's just seeing students do well, students achieve. Probably one of the proudest moments I can think of is when we had a young man. I was assistant wrestling coach, and Mrs. Eckenrod's husband was the wrestling coach, and we had a state champion one year, and he wasn't supposed to do very, very well. He just came in as just like everybody else, but he wrestled with a tremendous amount of heart, and he ended up winning the state championship, and that's probably the most proudest moment I had.
I think I'm more proud of people like Mrs. Townsley and Mrs. Bridgewater and a few others who I was able to be a part of their life and their schooling. In Mrs. Bridgewater's case, she was a student teacher for a while in my classroom. And I just am very proud of, that's the one thing about living here. And my husband also taught at the high school, so I could see kids as they grew up once they left this building. And because my husband was also a coach, we would go to all kinds of sporting events, as Mrs. Morgan and Mrs. Eckenrod will attest. And it was really fun to watch kids that we had in school, how they would grow up and become so responsible and good at what they did as they grew older. So I'm very proud to have been a part of those people's lives.
Yeah, there are so many proud moments. It's kind of hard to choose any, but I haven't been, here in Benton community for a number of years, but what I really enjoy seeing some former students still out there in the community and having contact with them, even on Facebook sometimes. You know what Facebook is, right? Yeah, so it doesn't just end here. It's seeing some of the people outside of the community when you're older.
I've had so many proud moments here too. A lot of them relate to what Mr. Donald was saying about my husband being a wrestling coach, and they named a tournament after him. And my sons and daughter were in athletics and things in school, and those were very proud moments as a parent. But as a teacher, I'm especially proud of so many of our former students who have become teachers. And I even have one little story about a student who said years ago that she became a teacher because of the story I read to them in the classroom, the fourth grade nothing. I don't know, someday maybe you'll have that story read to you. And so she reads that to her class every year. And those are proud moments, but I'm just proud of Benton community. I think I've always been proud to say I work at and live in Benton community. And I know at conferences people would come to the conference and complain a little bit out loud about their school district, but and they know what a great school district this is. They commented on that.
What would you like kids to know about Benton?
It's a great place to be. It's a good opportunity for you. There are tremendous opportunities here, and this is just very, very positive.
Fill the Gym night, when the show choirs did their show, I was with my grandson, who was, I told you, Will, in first grade, and I asked him if he'd like to do that someday, be in show choir, and he was like, well, but I want to play football and basketball. And the nice thing about it is, you know what I said to him? You can do it all. Because the quarterback for Benton's football team was on show choir, and one of the basketball players was in the show choir. And I had been to the play the weekend before, and some of the kids that were in the show choir celebration had also been in the play. There's so many things you can do as you get older and get into the high school. And that's the beauty of this school and the size that it is. You don't have to pick just one thing and say, I'm going to do just that. You get to do all kinds of things. And I hope you do.
Oh, Mrs. Logan said it all. She's right. Our daughters were out for all 4 sports. They were in plays. I don't know that singing was probably their forte, but you have that opportunity, not just sports, but playing an instrument and choir. But you're right, because it's a small district, you can do all that.
I agree completely. And I've always said to my 4th graders, or used to say, be sure when you're in junior high and high school, go out for things, participate, because school is so much more fun if you are involved in other things other than just the study part. So you are very fortunate to have such great programs here at Benton. So participate.
What does be a Bobcat mean to you?
I'll tell you what, I'm not going to answer this question. It seems like I've answered all of them. These gals said, well, that's what I thought too. So I'm going to let them tell you, because it's the same. It's great.
This was a hard question for me. My husband coached for many, many years football and basketball. So I went to football and basketball games. And when the players come out, the pep band starts up, the national anthem, and the school song are played, and everybody's standing and clapping, and all of the people are wearing Bobcat blue and gold. It's just really, really neat. So I guess being a Bobcat is being proud of where you are and what you're a part of, whether it's on a football or basketball team or whatever you're doing. But it's being a Bobcat is just being right here and enjoying this kind of atmosphere that you have.
And I would say, yeah, a synonym for being a Bobcat is pride, and having pride in who you are, pride in your community, in your school, doing the best that you can, no matter what you decide to go into or what activity you might have in school. I think pride is another word for a Bobcat.
Pride is the first word. Is the first word that came to my mind also. When you go over to those pep rallies in the fall, when you go to the homecoming pep rally, and when you go over for the Veterans Day thing, and all of you are in that whole side of the gym, and you've got your colors on, and that's what Benton Community Pride is. It's also, I mean, it's just the starting of it, and they start you young. I think that's great.
Thank you. What advice would you give to students today?
Part of this has already been answered, but basically I'd say be involved. Be involved. Do as many things as you can. We've talked about several of the programs that are available to you. There are some other programs that haven't been talked about. The FFA chapter is one of the best in the state. And if you know what they do, they had all kinds of awards that they won at state competition just a few weeks ago. Also, your speech contest or your speech participants are just tremendous. The plays, the instrumental music, the vocal music, the athletics, everything. And one other thing, and this is not something that you're going to think about for a long time, but when you get into high school, you will have an opportunity to take what is called dual credit courses. These are courses that you take and you get high school credit for. You also get community college Kirkwood credit. And you can, if you choose to, you can take enough credits in high school that will get you almost to a sophomore in college. You can take almost enough to get through your whole freshman year. And this really, really, really is an advantage to you, and especially an advantage to your parents if they're paying for your education.
Read a lot. I just saw that little saying up there, books fall open and you fall in. That happens to me a lot, and I hope it happens for you too, along with what Mr. Donald said.
Yeah, I'm thinking about some things right now, not just getting into high school, but what are some things that you think would be important right now? Listening to your teachers, doing your work, handing it in on time, being kind to one another out in the playground and in the classroom. Do those sound like good words of advice? Yeah.
I agree with everything that has been said. Also, our Benton Community Scholarship Program is amazing. I think they gave $85,000 worth of scholarships out to seniors last week. That's a lot. And most schools don't have that. So if you work hard, do well, have good grades, and are good citizens, you have a shot at getting some of that piece of the pie, as they call it, that $85,000. And everything that they have said.